Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down two terms we hear all the time and often use interchangeably: sex and gender. We're going to untangle that biological blueprint from our psychological identity to get a much clearer picture of who we are. Okay, so let's just dive right in with the big question that frames this whole conversation. On the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? But believe me, the distinction is incredibly important for understanding, well, just about everything about us. All right, if you're gonna boil it all down to one single idea, this is it. Sex is about biology. We're talking chromosomes, anatomy, the physical stuff we're born with. Gender, on the other hand, is all about psychology and culture, our own internal sense of self, and the expectations society puts on us. To really get this, we have to go way back. Back to the very beginning, to the biological instructions that are written before we're even born. This is where the physical side of the story kicks off. So the whole thing really gets started with our chromosomes. Most of us have 23 pairs, but it's that very last pair that acts as the starting gun for how our bodies develop in the womb. Around 5 weeks in, these little things called gonads start to form. Now, if a Y chromosome is present, it's like flicking a switch. It tells those gonads, hey, start making male hormones, things like testosterone. But if there's no Y chromosome, the default path is to make female hormones, or estrogens. It's a single chromosomal event that starts this massive hormonal chain reaction. And this just shows that process so perfectly. Look at that top image. At 8 weeks, the external parts are literally identical. You just can't tell them apart. But by birth, which you see on the bottom, those hormones have sculpted those common structures into what we recognize as male or female genitals. Pretty amazing, right? So all that development before birth results in what we call our primary sex characteristics. And that's really just a fancy way of saying all the reproductive parts we're born with. The organs that are directly involved in making more people. And yep, by the time a baby is born, those hormonal instructions have done their job, shaping the distinct organs we associate with females, like ovaries, and with males, like testes. That right there is the biological foundation. But the biological story doesn't just stop at birth. Oh no. The next big chapter unfolds years down the road, during puberty, and it builds right on top of that foundation. Puberty kicks off a whole new flood of hormones, and this is what triggers our secondary sex characteristics. Now, these aren't the parts used directly for reproduction, but they are the clear physical signs to everyone else that a person's body is maturing. And it's pretty interesting to see these changes laid out side by side, isn't it? For females, we're talking about things like breast development, the menstrual cycle. For males, a deeper voice, facial hair. These are those really visible markers of puberty that we all notice. Okay, so up to this point, we have been focused entirely on biology, chromosomes, hormones, anatomy, but that's only half the story. Now we're going to pivot. We're shifting from the body to the mind, to the psychological and cultural side of who we are. This quote from anthropologist Skell Rubin is actually the perfect bridge to get us there. It's this idea that gender isn't just a biological fact, but a concept that society kind of layers right on top of our physical sex. It's all about meaning. So let's be super clear. When we talk about gender, we're moving past the body. We're talking about the psychological side of things, how masculine or feminine, or maybe neither, a person feels. It's about our own internal experience and how we express that to the world. A huge part of this social side is what we call gender roles. You can think of these as a culture's unwritten script for how men and women are supposed to act. And what's wild is that these rules are totally different depending on where you are and what time period you're in. And that brings us to the most personal piece of the whole puzzle: gender identity. This has nothing to do with society's rules or your anatomy. This is your own deep, internal sense of self. It's simply who you know you are. So this leads us to a really, really important point. The relationship between the biological sex someone is assigned at birth and their internal gender identity, well, it's not always a perfect match. And this is the experience of transgender people. Their internal, deeply held sense of who they are is different from the sex they were assigned at birth based on their body. It's a mismatch between their mind and their body's biological blueprint. And it's not just our minds that can be complex. The biological blueprint itself isn't always so black and white. Intersex people are born with natural variations in their sex characteristics, which means their bodies don't fit neatly into those typical definitions of male or female. And get this is not as rare as you might think. It's estimated that about 1.7% of the population is born with intersex traits. To put that in perspective, that's about as common as having red hair. It's a powerful reminder that biological diversity is just a natural part of being human. And here's a crucial point. As our understanding gets better, our language has to get better too. Terms like transsexual, which you might still hear sometimes, are considered really outdated and disrespectful now. Using the right words isn't just about being politically correct. It's about showing basic human respect. So, after all that, why does this matter so much? Well, because when you understand that our biological blueprint doesn't always write the final chapter of our identity, it allows us to see people more clearly. It challenges us to look past physical assumptions and actually listen to the more complex, more authentic story each person has to tell about who they really are. So I'll leave you with this. What might change if we all started there?